Okay, we are live on air. Welcome to our live broadcast of Now What? A post-election debrief for seekers. Our program this evening is brought to you by the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism. I'm your host, Mastura Deborah Grenard, and our presenter for this evening is Dr. John al-Qadr Davies. Welcome, Dr. Davies, and thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor for me and pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll say it 100 times tonight if I can't say it enough. I feel like we are beyond blessed to have al-Qadr, Dr. Davies, with us this evening. When we planned this call, to have this call with Dr. Davies, his expertise to guide us through this exploration of all of what we were to learn from this controversial and the painful issues that were coming up during the election campaigns. But honestly, I had no idea just how contentious this election would get. And I had no idea how emotional that I personally would feel today. And judging from the posts on Facebook and messages that I've received from friends and clients today, I'm not alone. I think a lot of people are surprised and shocked, and a lot of people are elated and ecstatic about the results. So, you know, we're not here to have a discussion about the politics or the candidates, but just kind of sharing from my heart in the moment. So I want to thank Dr. Davies for being here, and I want to thank all of you for having the courage to show up and the heart to show up here this evening and be willing to take the dive into the inner explorations to shed light on any of the hidden shadows that divide us in any way, so that we as seekers of truth, can move forward in a way that fosters peace in our hearts and in our communities. So before we begin, I want to give you a brief introduction to Dr. Davies, to his background and contributions to our world so far. He's done an amazing amount of work toward peace in our world and in families and individuals as well. He is on faculty at the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism in the Department of Spiritual Peacemaking. He is also a co-director of the Partners in Conflict and Partners in Peacebuilding projects at the Center for International Development and Conflict Management at the University of Maryland. After practicing law and psychology and teaching meditation in Australia, an amazing combination, he moved to the U.S. in 1982. He has led or partnered in conflict transformation and peace-building initiatives in over 25 countries. He's trained thousands of professionals in conflict transformation, prevention, and multi-track diplomacy, including political leaders and diplomats, UN peacekeepers, police, educators, religious, civil society leaders. Dr. Davies has conducted extensive research on the impact of spiritual and secular techniques in promoting peace, which has been published widely. He served as consultant to various U.S. departments and international governments and organizations, and he has dedicated his life to empowering people, organizations, and communities in all cultural and spiritual traditions to create sustainable peace, wholeness, and personal growth. And now this evening he is here for us. Thank you again, al-Qadr. We are blessed.
Alhamdulillah, Mastura, thank you for your generous introduction and for holding this call and for opening up the possibility for us to come together. I appreciate the invitation. And so, peacemaking for me has been number one, to help people at every level, from families and individuals to communities and nations, or to be able to see and take up the possibilities in preventing or resolving conflicts or difficult situations that are at risk of escalating into violent conflict. And so what I've come to see is that each of these conflicts or difficult situations where people feel really triggered, stressed, are actual doorways for profound change in our lives. That when we come across the contradictions of conflict and the apparent dead ends that can come up in those situations, then we have to dig deeper. We have to start to look more deeply in our own heart for guidance on what's possible to be able to move forward, to be able to transform conflict into intimacy, conflict into trust, into sustainable peace for everyone involved. So it's a profound challenge. It's something that we're asked to do in the Quran, to be able to look for opportunities to be able to reconcile people in conflict, whether it's brothers and sisters or any level that Allah puts in front of us. So, a few years back, Sidi asked, I'd asked him for permission or for his guidance on whether I should respond to an invitation to go work in Pakistan along the border with Afghanistan when things were pretty violent there. And I was surprised with his answer. He asked me to stay and make peace in my own country. He said it's needed more here than anywhere. And what happens in the US has so much impact in the rest of the world that to the degree we bring peace here, that will have a greater impact than what I could possibly accomplish by putting myself in the middle of the conflict in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second. I know that we have some people on the line this evening who are not familiar with the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism or with Sidi. So I just want to say that when al-Qadr is speaking of Sidi, he is our spiritual teacher and guide, and Sidi is a term of affection that we use to refer to him. So I just wanted to let people know who you're referring to when you're mentioning his name.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'll just continue to refer him as Sidi when I quote him, but his longer name maybe is Sidi Muhammad al-Jamal. He is the longest serving ever, I think, lead imam at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the Haram al-Sharif in the center of the heart of Jerusalem. And so I agreed with his invitation because, in part, there are many reasons, but that he gave me. But on top of that, I could also, from my work in conflict prevention, was already well aware of the signs for increasing division and instability in this country. That was already a real concern for me. Things like the increasing gap between the rich and the poor, extreme gap between rich and poor in this country. It's the last two times it was this high. First one was just before World War I, and the second one was just before the Great Depression. So it's not a great place to be in. It's one of the strongest indicators of instability. So I was concerned, and so I really welcomed his invitation. And then another change that I was seeing was that there was a growing level of resentment being directed toward ethnic and religious minorities, and toward women and foreigners, all of whom had benefited substantially from the civil rights revolution in our country, and from related steps to be able to deepen our democracy. And however, given the increasing gap in wealth and the sense that the American dream was slipping out of our grip, the poor couldn't hope to be able to share the enjoyment of wealth that the rich had, or they had less hope. A lot of people losing hope that they could really succeed in the way they saw people succeeding around them. And so the way that was being directed against minorities, against religious groups, against women, against foreigners, was a real concern. It was growing, it's subtle, it was hidden mainly, but when you look, not so hidden. The Black Lives Matter movement, for example, is a symptom of that more recently. And a third one is just the way in which the government was becoming more and more deeply gridlocked. Divided governance with less and less willingness to work collaboratively and cooperatively to provide an effective service for the people in addressing their needs. If a government doesn't succeed in really addressing the human needs of the people, then they're losing their legitimacy. And so, which means if they lose respect, they lose trust of the people, and then people start to become resentful and feel unsafe and can look for scapegoats. So all of these coming together was a background to this election campaign, which brought each of those issues to the surface in different ways. So, I've been asked to talk tonight in the aftermath of perhaps the most brutal and divisive election campaign in our history, in the history of this country. It's a debriefing for seekers of the divine, and that means seekers of the one God. So that means we won't be promoting a conversation where we're taking sides. Rather, we're seeking to understand and heal the separation between us so that that healing both in our own hearts and in the country as a whole. So we want to seek to understand how our experience from this election campaign, and I'm sure many of you are still feeling it keenly, what new insights can come from that? What new connections? What deeper alignment with the divine, with the divine purpose in our lives? Does that open up for us, or does that open a doorway for us to walk through it? But we at least need to understand it, to see the opportunity, to see the way in which Allah works to create these opportunities for us to walk more deeply. So, I really want to appreciate the question and shock, the sense of pain and sadness that people feel. So many people feel from the campaign, for many of us from the outcome, which is so unexpected by the pundits and by many of us. Sense of fear or anger or loss of hope that we find coming up in our hearts at this point. And to also to acknowledge and appreciate the relief and the renewed hope that others may feel from the outcome and from what they may have learned through the campaign. But, one of the things that many people are seeing is that when we put our hope and we put our trust in a particular person or a particular vision or ideology for a better life, or just our hope for a life that's lived in peace, and that hope, that idea gets shattered by events, it's a loss that we may have to grieve for a while. It's something precious to us. Perhaps we didn't realize how precious it was. Suddenly gets taken away. So, grief is a gift of Allah that has a purpose. It tells us, signals for us that we need to take time out from our active life to reassess what's happened, what we've lost, and where we stand now in the world, to reflect on what we face, and to begin to open to healing. In other words, to let go what's been lost and appreciate what inspiration it may have brought us, what insight it may have brought us, so that we can begin afresh, we can learn from what has felt like a calamity for many. And in that reflection, looking particularly to understand what is Allah making through this crisis in our lives for many. What is He making from His love and His compassion for us that feels so painful? So for example, people who had been frustrated by government arrogance and ineffectiveness in the past, many have found reassurance that it's possible to start afresh, to bring in new blood, new hope, without the system itself having to break or collapse, and without escalating violence. New hope for many. Or those who have spent their lives blaming the government or outsiders for their problems, beginning to see that there's an opportunity now to learn what it's like to take on real responsibility for addressing the problems of the nation without the gridlock of divided government. So there are many that have been professional, spoilers in the process of governance. They've been simply in long-term opposition and or in long-term polarization. Now there's a chance to be able to step out of that polarization and for them to step into responsibility. There's a real learning opportunity for them to be able to take a whole different approach to the challenges that face all of us. Okay, and to demonstrate whether they've got what it takes. And if so, show us exactly what they have. So it's an open process of learning for all of us. To be able to allow ourselves to be surprised by what is possible when someone new steps in. So, and for all of us to see more plainly the hidden or somewhat hidden sense of disempowerment, the loss of hope that so many have felt, and to appreciate the need to find ways to help them directly to better meet their needs. Okay, so if effective governance comes from undivided government, from new blood, new ideas, inshallah, that may give them support in better meeting their needs. But now there are many people that have felt disempowered who are now feeling real hope, and their hearts provide the bedrock on which a new government will form, and to really put its heart into addressing the problems that we all face. So, Allah, when He made us, when He made Adam, and asked brought the angels to be able to witness, they were saying essentially, oh my God, do you realize how much death and destruction will come from the human being? And his answer was, I know what you know not. Okay? And a big part of what he knew was that creation requires transformation from unity into duality and then multiplicity, right? So Allah is one, but in his capacity to manifest, he divides himself into opposites. So he's both the beauty and the majesty. It's sometimes said to refer to the two hands that he holds our lives in. And so he says, for example, in the Quran, it is He, Allah, who shows you the lightning, giving rise to both fear and hope. He produces the clouds, and He produces the clouds heavy with rain. So He gives both hope and mercy, but He also does it in a way that pairs fear and hope. So when we see the lightning striking around us, we see the possibility of disaster, and we see the hope of rain and renewed life. So again and again, we get set in our ways. We get set in our attitudes as a form of safety and predictability in our lives. It makes us feel we've got feet on the ground, right? If we establish habits that seem to be serving us. But from His love for us, He brings us back to places of vulnerability. He breaks this false sense of safety with a few well-placed lightning strikes here and there, right? To remind us of our vulnerability, because that's where we start to open more deeply. Our hearts start to open. We start to live life not in a rigid structure that we have built for our defense and our protection, but we start to open ourselves to the constant flow of Allah's love, a much more dynamic world, a much more deeply interconnected world that allows us to connect with each other more deeply and to connect with Allah more deeply, to love each other more deeply, to be able to listen and tune into a deeper knowing in our hearts and step into a life that will more truly fulfill us. He also says in the Quran, truly, Allah doesn't change the condition of a people until they change themselves. So what He does is create the conditions, such as in this election, where we can see clearly the change that is needed. Okay? How can we do that? How can we begin to change ourselves? So some guidance from the Prophet and from our guide CD. Firstly, a hadith Qudsi. It's a hadith or teaching from the Prophet, peace upon him, and blessings, that have been well authenticated and that give us guidance beyond the more terse guidance of the Quran. So this is from Wisdom of the Devotee. It's a book of CDs which includes this particular teaching. The Messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, I am God, I am Allah, and there is no God but me. I am the owner of all the dominion, and I am the sovereign of death. and the hearts of all the leaders are in my hand. If people obey me, means open to me, I change the hearts of their leaders to be merciful and gentle toward them. And if they disobey me, I transform the hearts of their leaders to be full of anger and violence, and they will cause them severe suffering. So do not be busy invoking Allah against the leaders, but busy yourself with the remembrance of Allah, and I shall do what is appropriate with your leaders. So that's a very powerful teaching. Reminds us we're seeking align with, to get to know and to love the one God. In other words, his oneness contains all of the universe, all of manifestation. We're all expressions of his. He creates us and sustains us from love. And he does that through both the love of mercy and kindness and gentleness, and the love that comes from majesty and strength, when we need some tough love, in other words. So he responds as we respond. Okay? And what this does, it lifts, if we feel that we're being asked to take responsibility for what goes on around us in the whole country, it can very quickly, or in the whole world for that matter, can very quickly feel like an impossible burden of responsibility on our shoulders. But what we're being invited to is just to change our own hearts, connecting with Allah, so that he can clean what is in our hearts. And through that connection with Allah, as a result of us opening our hearts, then he brings gentleness, he brings kindness, he brings love into the environment, so that we experience ourselves living in a world of love. If we turn away from God, if we separate from ourselves, if we resist unity, then he shows us the majesty. The lightning strikes, and we feel pain and shock, and we are stunned into having to stop and reassess, to let go of old pictures of what reality is, what's real, and to begin to build afresh our understanding of our relationship to the world and our relationship with Allah. So, give you another perspective from Siddhi's teaching. Siddhi emphasizes that the world, the country, the government, our leaders are all simply mirrors of the reality that we carry in our own heart. So, for example, Siddhi says, and this is from his book, Reality of Gnosis, all existing entities are ranks of your being related to you. Nothing manifests to you except that which is to you and from you. Give each entity its proper favor out of love, because from that comes what perfects you. Each entity has meaning for you and is related to your reality. The realities that manifest to you don't manifest except by your reality. The whole matter is yours. It is from you and for you. In other words, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. What we carry in our heart is what we see in others. Okay, there's way more data, sensory data, and data coming in other more subtle means to us. And we are selectively paying attention to that according to how our heart guides us. So in that sense, we create the world that we live in. Okay? There are many senses in which that same thing is true, but this one is what's relevant right now. So if you see a shortcoming, he says, then know it is your own shortcoming manifesting to you. So if you dislike a shortcoming in anyone, then work to remove this shortcoming from yourself, and you'll not see its trace. Okay. So our hearts are mirrors for the hearts of those around us. So we feel and know with greater and greater clarity the more we walk in this journey. What our awareness is informed by our interconnectedness with everyone around us. Okay, so our heart reflects what is in the heart of others, and their hearts reflect back to us what is in ours. So we have to find the ways of cleaning our heart to be able to get rid of the ugliness we see outside by getting rid of it inside. And this is a complete reversal from our conventional way of doing things. We're taught that the problem is outside. If only those people would change. If only we had better leaders. If only we had better governance. If only my neighbor would move away. Whatever. Okay? These we're pointing to and blaming our problems on other people. What this does is disempower us and blinds us to what needs change in us. Okay, when you're pointing your finger at someone in blame, there's 3 fingers pointing back toward yourself. And so it's just a reminder of the mirroring that takes place. You know, and that willingness to be able to take responsibility for cleaning what is in our own heart through what we call tawbah. Tawbah simply means returning to Allah, turning back to Allah, to ask His forgiveness, to be able to clean our hearts. And once we're able to accept forgiveness for our own mistakes, our own old patterns that have caused injury or pain to others and to ourselves, once we're willing to acknowledge, to learn from our mistakes and to begin to see them and to see that something better is possible, then we make tawbah. And that also opens the door for us to be able to forgive others. Instead of blaming them, moving to forgiveness. And that opens the door of reconciliation. And this is, one of the deepest themes in this path of love. That we have to find a way of moving from separateness, separation, to reconciliation. From separateness to oneness. I'll just read you another passage from the Quran that talks about this. This is from Surah Ash-Shura, starting at verse 36. Allah says, "And remember that anything you've been given in this world is but a passing comfort. And that which is with Allah is better and more enduring for those who believe and place their trust in their Lord. And those who avoid major wrongdoing and shameful deeds, and when they're angry, forgive. The payback for an ill deed is an ill deed like it. But whoever pardons another and seeks reconciliation, his reward is with Allah. Surely Allah doesn't love those who oppress themselves and others." Okay, so it's built into our nature to push back when someone hurts us. And so there's permission, as long as it's proportional, you don't escalate, and you don't commit aggression toward another. In other words, you do it defensively. But it's only permission. We're not being called to that. What being called is something deeper. And That's why it is said, but whoever pardons another and seeks reconciliation, his reward is with Allah. And finally, Allah says, whoever is patient and forgives, indeed that derives from resolute mastery over oneself. So again and again, often these days, we can see the same divisions in the Islamic Ummah as well as we see in this country. And there's still conflict going on in Pakistan, for example. And of course, even more profoundly at this stage in Syria, in Iraq, in the Arab world. But what he is inviting us to do is to see all of this as mirroring our own reality. See the election campaign in our own country, mirroring what we carry in our heart. So stop being arrogant and judgmental, and to start to find the place of humility where we can turn to Allah and say, oh, I've contributed to this. I have let this happen in some way. Maybe I don't even understand how I contributed. Maybe I just thought I was being a little bit impatient with people, same as happens all around me. But I can see how that was actually oppressing people. And so I want to make tawbah for it. I want to turn to Allah and ask His forgiveness. So let's just take a moment. If you will. And I just want to do an exercise. And then we can open for questions and reflections from everyone. At first, I want to invite you to get yourself comfortably seated. And get in a position where you feel yourself supported and held by the earth. Opening your base, opening the soles of your feet, as if rooting down into the earth of Allah's love and Allah's mercy. Allah. Just opening your base, opening your belly, meaning any place where you notice tension, bringing the name there. Allah. Allah. Allah is just simply the Arabic for the one God. Allah. So, in other words, inviting His healing light into every part of your body, your solar plexus, your heart, your chest. Really open them as a resting place for the divine. Allah. Allah. Opening a space in your heart. Allah. Where you're just as if turning to Allah as if you see Him. As if you're having an intimate conversation with Him. And knowing He sees you even better than you see Him. No need for words. He knows what's in your heart. Just repeating His name, silently in your heart or aloud. Allah. Opening your throat, your eyes, or at least resting your eyes. You don't have to open them. Letting your shoulders drop, your breath settle. Allah. Reconnecting with the divine through remembrance. No. If you're distracted by a thought, just whenever you notice that thoughts are fine. But when you notice it, then that's the sign for you to come back to the name. So there's an easy turning and turning and turning back to Allah again and again. Allah. Just making the intention to be with Him, to open to Him. And really opening so that that light can move throughout your body. And feeling the intimacy of that space, and spaciousness around the name. Allah. So then, bring into that place anything that triggered you in either of the candidates in the election. Just remembering what got you upset or disappointed or disheartened. If something impacted you strongly, all the more attention to, all the more value in paying attention to it. Allah. If you just noticed someone acting in ways that seemed ugly, pay attention to that place and ask Allah to clean whatever it is in your heart that corresponds to that. You may recognize what it is. Alhamdulillah. Can learn from that. Just asking Allah's love to come in, Allah's mercy to come in and wash that place in you. That was causing you harm. That was shutting your heart down. So separation and judgment. Asking Him to clean it, to polish it, to allow His light to move through it completely. Allah. Allah. If you know the Arabic, asking forgiveness is astaghfirullah al-azim. Astaghfirullah al-azim. Astaghfirullah al-azim. Oh Allah, I ask you for forgiveness. I'm one. So find the place of regret. No matter how clear you may be on what it is that you're carrying. You have an idea of what you're carrying from what you have seen in the election. So be willing to acknowledge that there's a seed of that in your own heart and open it to Allah's healing light. If you feel regret, that's a symptom of the healing process, a symptom of the clearing of the hurt in your heart that was created, and the softening of that place, an opening of that place in your heart. Allah. So love that place. Nurture it, appreciate it. Feel compassion for the suffering it's been through. for the suffering that you've been through with it. And embrace it as yourself, part of you, reintegrating, recovering your integrity, owning who you are, and seeing the opportunity to purify, to clean, to walk more deeply in the way of the love. Allah. As you start to see it moving, to feel it moving and clearing, find the place of gratitude. Focus more on what has moved. Trust Allah to continue the process as you continue to open for the movement that happens, the clearing that happens. Because that will open you to begin afresh, to make that commitment of the heart to do better. Back in kind, what may have been, what may have hurt you, but to be able to seek to forgive, to break the cycle of violence, and to start a new cycle of forgiveness, kindness, of love and peace. And Allah is al-Muntakim, means the one who reflects back to us the results of our own action, so we can see it, both the good and the bad. He actually reflects back more strongly the good, because he wants us to learn as much as possible that way, how to align, how to step into what we're capable of being. And he also reflects back the bad, so that we can clean those spots that otherwise constrict us. So we always say, al-Muntakim is one of the divine qualities, but we always pair it with al-Afu, which is the pardoner, the one who completely wipes away our mistakes and creates the opening for us to begin again from a better place, having learned from our experience. Okay. This is the divine wisdom in the duality of Allah. Shows us the majesty when it's going to be helpful for us to learn, and always with the mercy. It's like again in the Quran, Inna ma'al usri yusra. With difficulty comes ease. Okay. So let me bring you back from there. Invite you to open your eyes, to be able to breathe more deeply again. Continue to have Allah in your heart. There's no need to ever cut that off, but just paying attention back to the conversation. There's one more teaching that I want to share with you before we go into discussion. We focused on seeing the ugliness in others as a reflection of what we carry in our own heart, and that empowering us to be able to make change from our side. that then has an impact on those around us. There's a deeper aspect of this that I want to share with you. He says, everything has life. This means it has nafs, or soul. Is the way in which he's using that word, Arabic word, as meaning soul. Everything has soul. Everything is from the first word when he said be. And he sent everything through the nafs, from the nafs of God, the soul of God. You can say she is not a shadow, but from the reality of God. There's only one nafs. She sends her light to everything. Everything Allah created is part of you. When you walk, it walks, though it understands differently than you. Let me say that again. When you walk, in other words, when you progress spiritually on your life journey, everything around you also walks, though each will understand it in a different way. For that reason, Allah made you Khalifa, which means his caretaker, his representative, charged with caring for your surroundings, for those around you. For that reason, Allah made you Khalifa, because you are Adam. You can use anything, but be very careful and know how to give and how to care for everything through walking and understanding. For that, he who understands the reality of God is very soft and carries all the love and all the peace and all the mercy for everything, because he understands that everything carries the reality of Allah. Sometimes he still returns back to the physical presence and sees something not right from another, but this is not from the other person. If he returns to himself, maybe he sees something that's not right. If so, it's important to fix it. If he does, he begins to walk again. Allah says, when you know yourself, then you know your beloved God. This is the nafs, or soul of Allah. In this way, he lives in the world of the unity completely, without separation. Okay, so unity is the goal of love. Each step in the journey is a step toward greater unity, to transcending separation and differences and the conflict that comes from unresolved differences. Okay, so let's stop there and open it up for questions, reflections, whatever you'd like to share. What's in your heart? What happened for you during the Tawbah? If you found it easy or difficult or helpful or not. If you have questions, whatever's coming to your heart about any aspect.
Share with people how to ask questions. There are a couple of different ways. If you are on the phone, you can press *2, and that will raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you and call your name. And if you were at the computer and you're listening through the Essence of the One blog, the live stream post, you can scroll down to the bottom, type in your question in the comments, and I'll read that to Dr. Davies. And again, so it's *2 if you're on the phone, or type it in if you're on the computer. If you're watching this through YouTube Live, there's a link underneath the video that you should see for Essence of the One, the Patheos blog. It starts with patheos.com/blogs, Essence of the One. Or you can just click Essence of the One and then find the first post. I think it's the second one down that says live stream, and it has the title of this. Click on that and scroll down at the bottom to type in your question. I hope that wasn't too confusing there. Okay, so we have a couple of questions on the phone. Say thank you as we go to the questions. Thank you for that teaching. I'm going to unmute first. Whatcom County, Washington. You're unmuted. Yes, that's you.
Yep. Welcome. Yeah.
The question that's coming through on the phone is that from someone who was saddened by the results, what occurred to her is the other side of the need to help others in need, and being together in community and caring about each other is we on what you will call the progressive side fail to realize how much out of integrity is going on in the neediness community. And it interferes with those who would naturally be helping others and be wanting to be charitable from doing that wholeheartedly.
Beautiful. Yeah, so that there's a desire to help, and yet we're not helping because we don't really understand what it is that they're needing. Right? And so that...
And there are those who take advantage.
Okay. So, yeah, take advantage, but then we look at why they act that way. Why are they taking advantage? It's because they have a deep need for safety or justice or respect, for example. And that if we look at that level of what's going on, then it takes us out of the judgment of their behavior as not being beautiful, not being correct, and starts to allow to see their humanity, starts to allow us to see their humanity again.
And to offer compassion.
Right. So this is a key insight that you've got. So thank you for it. What stops us from helping others is not that we don't want to, or not that our heart doesn't go out to people that are in need, but we don't understand really what it is, why it is that they've gotten into such a difficult state, or what they're needing that will lift them again. And if we understand the need, then the need is not what they might be asking for even, or what they might be demanding if they're angry. Right?
Excuse me, al-Qadr.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we've lost you on the video. Can you check your connection?
Okay,
Sorry.
It's not going to come on right away. I can see that the internet connection, I'm going to have to reboot the modem. So it'll take a while for my...
Okay. Okay, we'll keep going on the phone, and I'll maybe be able to edit the video. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So looking behind what we see of a person's behavior that we may not like, to be able to see what was driving it, what the universal human need was that was behind it, and give the example of the need for justice, the need for fairness, the need for love, the need for peace, and if we understand what are the critical needs, then that really opens up the opportunity to work with them and to be creative in doing that, because it gives us a way of really understanding more deeply who they are, not as an offender, for example, or as a rude person, but as a human being like ourselves that is in need of love. Alhamdulillah. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to question number 2, and I'm unmuting from Fremont, Newark, California, area code 510. You're unmuted.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So good to talk to you. I resonate 100% with everything you have said, being spiritually awakened myself last year and just going through my own journey and towards the path of spirituality and enlightenment. And one thing that I would really love to ask you is, what can we tell our children? You know, I have a 14-year-old, and I am a very sensitive, intuitive empath, and you know, I had to plug myself out from the elections and had to kind of, you know, I didn't watch any of the news or anything like that because I was feeling it so deeply. I was feeling everyone's feeling the fear and the anxiety. And so naturally for me, I had to plug myself out. But last night I heard my 14-year-old say, well, you know, I don't like this. This is scary. What am I going to do at school? How is this going to? So I really would love for you to talk about the impact on children.
Yeah.
You know, and what we can say, what we can teach, and I can share it with other of my friends who are of color, who are of different ethnicities and religions, because we're all in this together. It's not just Muslims. It's not just color. You know, it's everybody.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So if a child, 14-year-old, comes to you like that, then it's a good opportunity to be able to engage in conversation with them. You ask him to tell you what it is that he or she doesn't like, and you know, all the while holding them in with compassion, empathy. And then helping them look at what might be behind that. Why did the person do that? Help to understand what could possibly have been going on for them that they can understand. Right? Was this person stealing, for example, because they're hungry? Or was this person lying to prevent someone in their family being taken to court and trying to protect them in that way, right? So it's not a matter of whether something is justified or not, right? Lying is lying.
I think,
but it's a matter of understanding what's behind it.
Right, but I think this is all just the Trump, the fear mongering, just that tone and the news that's been going on for so many months. And then finally when, you know, the news hit, kids are feeling unstable and a little off balance.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know, there's several possibilities here. One is to recognize that as your child, like you, he may be sensitive, which means that he's more deeply feeling the fear and anxiety around him. And so if you can help him understand the gift that he has of sensitivity and being able to understand and get to know where people might be upset and need your help. Right? Okay. So help him understand how that is a strength for him, how it's a gift for him. And then if you can help him, and if maybe he doesn't have enough information about the specific situation that triggered him or made him feel stressed, then maybe let me come back again. Almost back. Then maybe you could ask him to reflect and see where else he may have seen this behavior.
Okay.
In one of his friends, for example, at school or whatever. And then
take the conversation to, has he ever felt something like that? Has he ever felt that need? And has he ever reacted in that way? Just help him explore. Don't accuse him of anything, because Allah can give us trials that don't involve mirroring for us. So the last thing you want to do is think, oh, that's just mirroring, so it's your fault, not theirs. That's exactly the wrong message to give. It's empowering him that's important, giving him insight and new possibilities for his life, not loading responsibilities on him, particularly as a sensitive. That would be just totally inappropriate. Okay. I don't have audios that I can send out, but I do teach courses regularly at the yeah. That's true. That class is there. So I teach the peace making major, and I also teach webinars and teleclasses to the other years 1 through 3. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have some audios of meditations. If you want to go to Sufi, SUFI, S as in Sam, UF as in Frank I, SufiUniversity.org/info. It's SufiUniversity.org/info. There's a place there where you can sign up for a 7-day e-course that is a spiritual renewal and infusion, and that has some meditations. There's an audio download that you get with that. It's Dr. John Wadud Laird doing a meditation, but it's similar. So while you're waiting for another one from al-Qadr, you can check that one out.
Alhamdulillah, good idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm so glad you're back on video now. I'm going to go to one that has come in through the computer, through comment. The question is, how to make my upset wife feel, or any family member for that matter, calm and help her trust that there might be a gift or teaching in the disaster or bad news. So how to help a loved one.
Okay. All right. So how to help a loved one, someone in our family or our partner, to be able to find a place of calmness and look for what the gift might be in what they've heard or seen in the campaign, right? So, first you can point to the way in which, particularly the way we're triggered, but just the things that we notice, the ugly things that we notice that upset us. These are pointing to places in our heart that need our attention. This is part of understanding the unity of Allah, that the reality of the universe is that it is a single unit, and that things in the world around us don't happen randomly. They happen in ways that are constantly giving us guidance. And so even in the more difficult parts of the campaign, the things that look ugly are the ones that are the strongest pointers that there is something in our own heart that has resonated with that needs your attention. And you can also help them by acknowledging any upset that you felt yourself and your own experience with using that guidance to be able to clear your own heart and find a place of peace, to find a place of peace in your heart. And in fact, in terms of bringing peace to people you love, that's your first step, is actually to be able to look at what their upset corresponds to in your heart and make tauba for your part in that. Okay? This is particularly someone who's close to you, someone you love dearly, your wife, your child, that your husband. When they're sick, when they're upset, when they're off balance, in separation one way or another, this is not separate from you. They're reflecting you back to yourself. So your first step is to help yourself. It's like when we're on the airplane and the cabin crew tells us to put the oxygen mask on yourself and breathe before you start running around after other people or kids to help them put their mask on. If you're not breathing yourself, you can't help other people. So you have to help yourself to help them. Or you can do, and this works beautifully, I found, make tauba for what you carry at the same time as asking Allah to forgive not only you, but also anything that might correspond to that in the other. Not blaming them, but wanting to share the blessing of the healing that you receive with them. In exchange for your gratitude for them having shown you what you couldn't see, and that you were then able to turn to Allah and clear. So in gratitude for the one who showed you, then naturally it flows that you want them to receive healing as well. Okay? That, those of you who are at the university and learning healing methods, spiritual healing methods, or spiritual peacemaking methods, this is critical. That you have to be the peace yourself. You have to be whole yourself to be the widest possible channel for Allah's healing, for Allah's peace, to help Allah's feeling, or to offer yourself as a channel for that peace and healing and forgiveness to come to another. Okay. And again, just as we talked about with the 14-year-old child, we were treating the 14-year-old like an adult, so we can treat the adult like a 14-year-old in the same way. Help them in your discussion, without putting yourself above them. Just work with them as equals, as brother and sister, to look at what might have been behind that behavior. What is the human need that was driving it? Maybe it was a poor choice. Maybe lying wasn't a good plan in a presidential campaign, for example, but was the best they could come up with as a way to address that need. So focus on the need, which is our need. And it's a way in which we are guided by Allah, because all of the human needs are ultimately yearning, a way we yearn and reach for the divine qualities that Allah gave us when He made us, when He made our prototype, our template, which is Adam, and therefore us. Okay,
yes, thank you.
Okay.
So there's another question on the phone. I'm going to unmute John and Austin. You're unmuted. Hi.
Hi. Wa alaikum salam. Great. Yeah. Yep. Right. Beautiful. Okay. So yeah, this is it can cut deeply to see this going on. The violence against women.
al-Qadr?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you to repeat that, or I can repeat the question?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
I kind of got a little bit out of sync there with the
Okay.
with the recycling of the video. But for the video, the question is to address the issue of the violence against women and how that feeling of we're letting someone get away with that, and how to address that. Did I say that okay? Just to sum it up, and you're welcome to add to that before you continue with the answer.
Good. So there's just as in the quote that I read you from the Quran, one of the quotes I read you from the Quran, there's two forms of justice. There are many forms, but there's two broad categories of justice. And when we're letting someone get away with this, it means we feeling the need for justice here, right? So behind your question is that, and behind your daughter's question, is that her need for justice, right? She needs to be able to find justice in the world and to trust it. And so let her know that that the conventional forms of justice are mainly focused on retributive justice, punishing someone for something that they have done wrong, okay? And that has its value. It can provide new incentives for people to clean up their behavior, right? So, but it's not the best form of justice. Just as Allah was saying that we can, when someone has harmed us, but better if we are patient and forgive. So the second form of justice, we can call it restorative justice. And that requires looking deeper. It's not just saying, well, this is a bad action, so there has to be a bad consequence, so here it is. If we can find a way to promote restorative justice in a situation like this, then so much the better. And the restorative justice is something that doesn't simply provide a consequence and hope that they will learn from that the right lessons, but it is going beyond that to be able to help heal the person who was wronged, okay? And to help all of the women that are hurt and subjected to some form of violence, to help them find justice, and to be able to recruit, if there's a particular person that your daughter is aware of that has been abused in that way, then what I've found in our peacemaking work is that these people, if they're supported to be able to understand justice more deeply, they've become the most powerful agents for peace that we can find, because they know what it's like to be violated. And they can speak to another victim or potential victim with an authenticity and sincerity that allows them access in ways that other people don't have it. And so that they can be, rather than simply seek to avenge by getting a particular perpetrator punished, they can seek to get a bigger form of justice established in promoting the respect for women. For example, it might be the particular form of violence that was used that points to a need for better governance or reform in the law, locally or nationally, or just more public awareness of the way in which women are impacted by this sort of behavior. It's like some of the Arab immigrants that were coming to Germany recently failed to really get the way in which their aggressive behavior toward women, whistling and aggressively pursuing them without their permission or invitation, how devastating that can be, how hurtful that can be. That there's far too little sex education, for example, or education on these matters in the countries of the Middle East. And I'm just using as an example. I've spent a lot of time working in Egypt and a little bit in Palestine, and other places in the region. And it's not only in this country, it's in many countries around the world. Some do better than others at really educating the youth. So for you to sit with your daughter and let her know, or let her make sure that she's clear on letting if there's an opportunity to how to speak plainly to someone, to make it clear that his advances or his pressure is not welcome. In other words, talk with her, see where fear is coming in for her, and see where she feels vulnerable. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And what she's saying is she's realizing that more women are talking. Oh, I'm sorry. More women are talking about what is going on for them, and it's bringing more of the conversation up, which is a beneficial, healthy thing for all involved.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
She's saying she's feeling more peace. That actually
right.
highlights that doesn't make it right, but it's opened a big light
Yeah,
on it.
just
That we can
the way in which public opinion shifted radically
learn from.
after some of that came out was encouraging. And it wasn't the deciding issue in the election, but it was clearly a big issue, And so there was some consciousness raising going on. Right. Yeah. Good.
Thank you. Let's see. I just want to say, we're pretty close to time here. So,
can I just close with one statement as well before
yes,
you
absolutely.
talk? Yeah. But, one thing I wanted to say is that basic to the teaching of this way, this path of the love that Sufism represents, is that the cleaning the mirror of our heart opens us to seeing the divine in everyone. Okay, that's the light that people carry gets clouded when we're in blame, when we're in separation. So as we clean that judgmentalness, that arrogance in ourselves, then that makes room for us to be able to see people in a whole new way, and to be able to talk about people, to represent people to our children, for example, in a whole new way, to restore their trust in humanity. And as we start to see that the divine qualities, the lit up qualities in people around us more and more routinely, what happens is that this world becomes a heaven for us, that we're surrounded by the divine. There is no ugliness left, because we're recognizing that was simply a mechanism through which Allah helps us to purify our own heart to the place where we can always see the beauty of His light in every face, in every soul. And we can see that light behind even the actions that before would have stopped us as something ugly, so that we can then intervene potentially to help them to address the need that they were trying to address inappropriately or unsuccessfully, and to help them find their own light. So once we see people in that light, we're naturally drawn to help them. So rather than putting a crushing responsibility on our shoulders to be able to heal the country, which is just not what is asked of us, we're asked to heal ourselves. And as we heal ourselves, we see the beauty in others, and we're inspired, and we love to be able to express our love for others through helping them, and through whatever they're open to, whatever they're ready for, to care for them, to be Khalifa, to be honoring them, appreciating them in ways that will help to address the needs that you'll come to see more and more clearly as your heart clears. In other words, in this path, we don't look for heaven after our body dies. We look to break the tomb of our imposed existence and free ourselves to live a full and complete life right here on this planet. Okay, and so that support in doing that is why the university was founded, Sufi University. And so I want to pass you back to our host, and if you can share with them, Mastura, something about the university.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, al-Qadr, for this beautiful gift you've given us this evening. I want to thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your heart. Thank you for your questions, your sincerity, and your beauty that you've come with, the beauty of your mirror of existence, as al-Qadr says, and as the teachings say, we are all reflections of the light in the world and the love in the world, and the more we polish and clean our own mirrors, the more we can reflect for each other that light, so they too can see themselves as light, and we can all see each other as light. Splitling. And so thank you. And if you would like, as I said, as we've mentioned, the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, us here together this evening. If you'd like more information on the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, we offer a number of programs. We have distance learning programs, as well as a Masters of Divinity program that al-Qadr teaches in the Masters of Divinity and with Spiritual Peacemaking Department. It's I think the most transformative program that I know of on the planet. It's an amazing program that really helps us to study, to practice, to embody the teachings of purifying the heart, so that we do become the clean mirrors for ourselves, for each other, as we walk in this physical, material plane of existence, and really follow and satisfy the yearning in the heart to live and to know divine truth in the deepest way on the conscious and subconscious layers of our beings, in the heart and the soul. So if you're interested in knowing more about the programs for the university, you can go to sufiuniversity.org and info. sufiuniversity.org/info. That gives you access to some free programs that we have. As I mentioned earlier, with the woman that asked the question about meditations, we have a program there that's called a 7-day e-course, where you're welcome to sign up for that. It's free. It'll give you 7 days worth of email exercises to use these meditations for purification of the heart, for polishing our mirrors. It also gives you an audio download, and it gives you a link to a live meditation practice that we do every Tuesday afternoon, and it's afternoon in the on the East Coast, U.S. East Coast. But you're welcome to join us for that. We'll have a webinar, a brand new webinar that's coming up. Now, I want to tell you, all right, if you're interested in this webinar, I'm going to tell you to just go ahead and send me an email. You can send the email to info@sufiuniversity.org. info@sufiuniversity.org. Now, let me tell you about this webinar, because I'm very excited about it. It's a 12-week webinar we have coming up that is the poetry of the Sufi mystics, awakening the heart through the language of love. Rumi is a Sufi poet who is the most popular poet in the world right now, and has been for quite some time. His poetry is the language of love that draws out the yearning in our hearts to just lose ourselves in the ocean of divine love, and to be one with that essence, that pure essence. And so we actually, for this webinar, be poets as well. There's Hafiz and Ibn al-Arabi and possibly Gibran. We've got 7 different teachers coming together who are all authors of Sufi poetry. They've written poetry, they've studied the works, they've studied the deeper meanings. They're all from Sufi tradition, and one who is from a different tradition who is coming in, who is a teacher of voice, and helps people to learn to access their own voice, that place of raw truth from within, and bring that forth. So we're going to be bringing together the study of the Sufi poetry and the language of love and the beauty from the heart, and accessing our own voice with that, and writing our own love letters to God, and really delving into the depths of that ocean of divine love that is expressed and conveyed through this poetry. It's a 12-week webinar. It's going to start on December the 8th. Email me at, I'll get the email, info at sufiuniversity.org, and I'll get you the information on that. I thought that the link was actually going to be available today. I don't think we quite got it up today. I think we slowed down a little bit with just all of the calls and everything that we received today in the wake of the election that we weren't quite expecting. But anyway, we'll have that live very soon. That's starting in just a month from now on December the 8th, and I'm beyond excited. Kabir Helminski is a very popular Sufi teacher and leader and translator of poetry in our country right now. He's going to be contributing. He's going to be teaching. Dr. Abdulhaq Godless, who is a professor at University of Georgia, is going to be contributing. Amani Shalabi, who is one of our teachers at the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, who has written her own books of poetry, is going to be contributing. Iraj, who has written translations and a singing of the Rumi poetry, and Christiane Karam is the teacher of voice from School of Berkeley, the University of Berkeley School of Music in Boston. And let's see, I know I'm even forgetting some, and our Salima Adelstein is going to be contributing to that as well. It is going to be an amazing program. So again, info at sufiuniversity.org. As soon as that is available, I'll send you the information on it. And again, if you're interested in the meditation, you can get that too. That is sufiuniversity.org/info. So I want to thank you again for being with us this evening. If you have questions that you didn't get answered, you're welcome to email me at that address also, and I'll forward those on to Dr. Davies.
Mastura?
So again, thank you for being here.
Mastura?
Yes.
Could I just finish with a couple of lines of beautiful verse that actually represent a dua or prayer from Sidi that might be appropriate, just in terms of you're inspiring me talking about their next webinar series. That just a short closing prayer in Arabic, and I'll translate it into English as well. Just 4 lines. Ya Allah, Ya Mutakabbir, ij'al fi nafsi nura. O Allah, O superb, grant me light in my soul. Ya Allah, Ya Khaliq, ij'al fi bayti nura. O Allah, O Creator, bestow light in my home. Ya Allah, Ya Bariya, ij'al fi baladi nura. O Allah, O Fashioner, bestow light in my homeland. Ya Allah, Ya Musawwir, ij'al fi baladi nura. Ya Allah, Ya Musawwir, Ya Allah, Ya Bari, ij'al fi kulubi abna ana nura. O Allah, O Shaper from North, bestow light in my children's hearts. And then, Ya Allah, Ya Musawwir, ij'al fi baladi nura. O Allah, O Fashioner, bestow light in my homeland. Ameen. It's just so a prayer to be able to open to Allah's light, to carry it in our hearts, in our families, and in our country. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mastura.
Thank you. A beautiful way to end the call today. Thank you so much. And go in peace and love and gratitude and service.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much.